Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today in War Thunder, I'm going to be talking about, basically what I believe the state that this game is in. It's been a topic which has been talked about by a lot of people, but to be honest, I didn't really see the point in getting involved because I do have a lot of the same views as other people, just minor tweaks here and there. But a few people, including Sharplight, who has basically given up the game, asked me to make a video or at least see how my views are about the game. Over the last month or so, it's been very frustrating trying to keep up with this game. That's why a lot of my reviews haven't been really of later planes, like Tier 4 and 5 planes, because to be honest, I can't be bothered to get the modifications on them. I'd rather just pick elite units that I already have, that I've already grinded, because I know the planes better, and it's just easier for me. Also, there's been a few changes made to the game, which I have to commend Gaijin on, just to say, good job in a way. One of them is the new gun sounds on the tanks. I love the fact that they have like a depth to them now, so you can gauge by the sound of the shot the distance from the target. It's absolutely wonderful. I love stuff like that. But overall, the last few patches have been kind of not underwhelming, but it seems like we're waiting for that big update. And in that next update, there seems to be a lot of stuff coming. Basically, what they're going to be doing is putting out a lot of planes for the Japanese, a lot of jets, but a lot of bomber jets, which, a lot of people will be, they just won't like. There's going to be for the Germans, everybody's looking forward to the Horten, the HO229, for some bizarre reason. And then we're basically getting new stuff, which is always nice in the next update, but nobody knows when it's going to come around. It could come around tomorrow, it could come around in a year's time. You never know. But that's looking towards the future. What I want to do is look at now. I want to discuss what I think this game has become since, before. Now let's give a bit of backstory. I have played this game for about a year and a half. I started early last year, so I've been through the ringer of, the different matchmaking systems, the BR systems, basically all the new testing and all of the old ranks and the new ranks, and basically how Gaijin have sorted everything out. I did like the old system. Obviously, the tiering system, for me, it kind of made sense on the way of progression. When you actually unlocked a new rank, you would be able to maybe unlock 2 or 3 planes, or even 1 or 2 planes, but there was always that opportunity of getting more than 1 plane, where in this you're basically grinding 1 plane. Also, you didn't have the whole, you have to get 6 planes of this tier, because, they weren't tiers, they were just ranks. And the way it basically worked for all you people who are probably new to the game is, during the ranks, your XP would go towards upgrading your rank in that Air Force. So let's say I'm rank 12 in the British, that means that I can fly anything which is rank 12 or below. But all the XP I get in those planes goes towards getting rank 13 in the British. And when I get to rank 13, then I unlock all the planes in rank 13. I do have to buy them and put them in crews, but I don't have to do it individually. Now, I really enjoyed that system. It was a good system, in my opinion, and it was fairly easy to do. And there wasn't... it never felt like there was a pay gap, and I got to basically, I think it was rank 12 in all nations by the end, before it switched to this new system, and I never felt pressured to put money into the game or anything like that, or spend exuberant hours, but I can understand later on, if you had to, because this is a free-to-play game at the end of the day. But when we compare that to this new system, which has been around for a while, and I have talked about before, even with Sharplight in a few of the videos, it really is underwhelming when you compare the two. I remember at the time Sharplight said, this new system will be great for people who are new players, because it will be very easy to understand, and also it will make progression very easy for them. Not in the way of grinding stuff, but in the way of it's very obvious how it's all laid out. Whereas for us, who were there beforehand, it's an abomination of a system. And you can see on the forums, the people who are complaining are the people who have been around since before the system was here. And they're all going, we want the old one. And it makes sense. We said it we said it whenever this thing was implemented. I believe it was around last Christmas. That's going to happen. People are going to want the new system. No matter what you do in a game, people will either want the old stuff or prefer the new stuff. There's going to be no in between. There's going to be no people who go, well, this is better and this is pretty good as well. They're either going to be, it's like a yes or no statement. People are either going to really like the system or not like it. A big elephant in the room, though, to this system is the fact that tiers don't make a difference apart from unlocking stuff, which I think a lot of people still don't understand how the matchmaker works, and I wish they would just go and look it up. Gaijin themselves have even explained it in a dev blog, for God's sake, because so many people were complaining about it. Matchmaking has nothing to do with tiers at all. It's all down to BR. Tiers is just to basically make the progression system look nice. It used to be for to basically show where planes would go in World War II, basically when they were introduced and everything like that. But right now it's so skew-whiffed all over the place, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it is literally now only something to progress through. There is obviously generally some kind of historic base, because obviously on Tier 1 you have early war planes, and then Tier 5 you have post-war planes, but I mean, in the middle it's all over the place when you actually look at introduction dates and stuff like that. But another massive elephant in the room that a lot of players talk about, but never really offer any solutions, is the BR system. Now, we all know it is unfair. The fact that you can fly out something like a Spitfire Mark 1A, a pre-war plane, and face a F6, F3 Hellcat, a, in all intents and purposes, late war plane, and that's fine. You can even face an F4U1A USMC Corsair, or the normal Corsair, as well. The F4U1A. I did a video on it. That is a 1943-44 plane. The Spitfire Mark 1A is maybe 1937-38, depending on what you want to look at. There is a lot of inconsistencies with this thing, but it's not really down to the battle ratings, I don't think. The main problem is the split, and this is what I have a problem with. That BR spread of 1.3. So that means that my Spitfire Mark 1A can face anything with a battle rating of 3.7, which includes the P-47D 25 Thunderbolt, a plane that a lot of people have argued about and should be upped in BR. Same with the P-38G, 3.7. So you're talking about a 1937-38 plane facing a 1944 plane. And people don't think there's a problem with that. Now, the only solution in my head I can see is that you lower the spread. If you want to keep this system, that's fine. But you lower the spread to maybe 0.6 or 0.7 if you want to be pedantic, 0.66 let's say. So let's say the Spitfire Mark 1A can only face stuff which is 3.0 instead of 3.7. I would be fine with that. Same with the Hurricane Mark 2B, 2.3, faces only stuff which is 3.0 and goes down to 1.6. I'll be fine with that. I'll be great with that. Because the problem you have now is that there are obvious planes which are better than others, or iconic planes that people want to fly. When we look at America, I'm not scapegoating America here, I'm just using them as an example. A lot of people like flying their Flying Fortresses, the B-17s. A lot of people like flying the Mustangs, the P-51s. And a lot of people like the Bearcats, the F-8F1 and the F-8F1B. So, and they're also using them to grind jets. Because, well, the Americans have some very nice jets, it's as simple as that. But when we actually look about it, they're all basically around the same BR. So the Mustang at 5.0, because a lot of people are playing the Mustang and not really much else for America in Tier 4, you in your early Focke-Wulfs, or your BF-109F Trops, or your G2 Trops, or, let's see, Russians, LA5FN I believe? Yeah, LA5FN, even though you're at 1.0 BR lower, you're always going to face them. Because that's what the Americans are flying. Same for stuff like, let's go for Russia. Russia, the LA5 got down-tiered for some stupid reason a few patches ago to 2.7. And a lot of people are flying that for Russia, because it's under-tiered, and it's really, really good. You're not going to find many people who are flying the I-16 Type 27, the Yak-1B or the Yak-7B, or even LAGs. A lot of people are going to be flying that LA5. So you're going to have a full team of LA5s against stuff like the Hurricane Mark 1. And even though with the BR spread that I gave, that can still happen, at least it would be more fair than a Hurricane Mark 1 facing an LA5F. Or, even to be better, an I-16 Type 27 Ishak. So if we just, instead of the BR spread being either way 1.3, we reduce it to 0.66 or 0.7, so it's only really 2 of those BR slots different, it would make sense to me. Obviously people would disagree with me, which is fine. The great thing about stuff like YouTube and the forums on War Thunder and everything like that is, in my opinion, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. The great thing about this game is that there are a lot of discussions going on, a lot of people talking about it, but there are fundamental things wrong with it. A lot of people talk about historical matchmaking and how it would be better than this system. I am going to talk about the BR system a bit more, but I thought I'd change the topic for a little bit. So a lot of people talk about the BR system and how it should be historical. That kind of works with planes. It works really well with planes, apart from a few things, such as modifications and such like that. Like how do you distinguish this, like, let's say, something like, what would be a good example? Alright, the Focke-Wulf 190A1. I just did a review on it, and we found out in the historical fact-finding that the first 100 was shipped with a certain type of engine. The engine it didn't last very long. I think it was 30 to 40 or 20 to 30 hours. And then they had to get replaced engines, and they had to get fixed. So, do you cut off that Focke-Wulf 198.1 before it got the new engine, or after? Because that old engine wasn't great. It broke a lot. If you actually look at the Focke-Wulf 198.1 listings of that first 100, a lot of them crashed due to engine failures and not actually getting shot down, or getting shot down by your own AA, which I found very interesting. But like, if we take the Focke-Wulf 190A1 and go, well, okay, here we go. It's pretty much an early war plane, but if we give it the secondary engine, it isn't an early war plane anymore. It's a mid-war plane. A lot of players would still disagree with that, because they'll be like, wow, it's an early war plane, blah, blah, blah. So it all depends on modifications that you do to these planes. Like, technically, all the Ju-87s are basically the same. The only thing really which is different with them, if you actually look at their max speed, turn time, rates of climb, everything like that, they are basically all the same. The only difference is the guns on it and the bombs that it can carry. Now, do you think they should all have the same BR? I mean, technically the G2 and the G1 and the G2 were a modification created for Kursk to destroy tanks, which I haven't had any luck with in game. But anyway, when was the Battle of Kursk? I'd say it's, what was it, 1942, I believe? So that should be tiered up with 1942 planes. At the moment it isn't. If it was, and there were stuff like, there was stuff around it which could maybe protect it, then it would be great. Looking at a lot of other planes though, historical matchmaking would make a lot of sense. And let's say the way you balance it is, a lot of people talk about where you balance it by the idea of rewards. So for the classic example that everybody uses is the Me-262 for the Germans and the Mustang for the Americans. Well, let's just take all factors out. Let's just say they have equal teams. There's 10 Me-262s against 10 Mustangs. Now, the way you would balance it by rewards is basically you say, okay, well, if one Mustang takes down an Me-262, that Me-262 has to take out 10 Mustangs to make the same reward as that one Mustang did taking out one Me-262. So basically, the Me-262 makes 10% of what the Mustang makes. Now, a lot of people see that as fair, and I would agree with them. Overall, it is fair. But you do got to remember that players don't really care about stuff like that. It's all well and good in theory, but as we've seen in many games, all you have to do is look at PlanetSide 2, Company of Heroes, even World of Tanks with that, basically that tier 10 German autoloader, which basically is it's a anti-aircraft gun mounted on a Panther chassis. I can't remember what it's called, the something tractor, I believe. But people will always go for that. They will always go for the strongest thing at its BR. That's why you have a lot of people flying the Bearcat, a lot of people flying the Mustangs, because what they're coming up against is inferior to them. That's why you get a lot of people flying the LA-9. And even when it comes down to it, the Griffin Spitfires. So, even if you did this, I would say test it. But I think after looking at other games, and after seeing the community in this one, everybody would just fly Me-262s. Because they will believe they'll be able to take down 10 Mustangs without getting shot down. And they probably could. And that's just how it is. Like, if you give people an unfair matchup, they will grasp it with both hands. All you have to do is look at events. When I showed you that video on historical matchmaking, where it was like 200 people to about 8, I think, that just shows you. And there are parts of the war which just weren't balanced. The Battle of Prokhorovka was a great example for that. And if that doesn't show people that historical matchmaking, it can work, but it does need a few tweaks, then yeah. Alright, I agree with you. Like, obviously there was a guy in the forum, a senior, he was either a moderator or somebody who works for Guardian, he basically said, if we had historical matchmaking, the B-17 would come up against the I-15. Now, he is wrong. He is massively wrong in a lot of ways. Just because the first flight of the B-17 was in 1935, and just because at the Battle of Midway, the Midway airfield had 8 of the things going, like they had 8 B-17s, I believe, they wouldn't face I-15s. Like, his logic was just out of the window. But the big issue is, if you do create historical matchmaking, you're going to have a lot of people fighting over when the plane was introduced. Because let's say, as I said before, let's look at something like the Spitfire LF Mark 9. It's introduced, okay. It's introduced on this date, I don't know when it was, so let's say 1944 or 43, August 12th, But then one of the modifications will be, let's see what this thing has, a new engine, or some wings repair, or a new compressor. And then somebody goes, well, blah, 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 that engine was only put in 1944. Okay, so does that mean that that plane should have a historical tiering of 1944 or 1943? Or should it change due to modifications? Something that I'm quite passionate about. I think the more modifications a plane should get, the its BR should change. A prime example of this is if any of you fellow guys have been flying the BF-109 G6. Without modifications, this thing has the same BR as it does when it has full modifications. This thing has a BR of 5.0, same as a Mustang, but gets outperformed in every single way to the Mustang. And then it has to fight B-17s when all it has is 120mm and two 13mm. Then it has to fight Bearcats, which even outperform it even more. But with modifications, at least it stands a chance. Whereas without them, well, I've suffered a lot of pain in this aircraft. Mainly because I've been trying to understand Germany. To understand why people are complaining a lot about it. And the G6, right now in realistic battles, this is probably my worst KDR of any plane. I mean, every plane on the German tree, I am positive with. So I have more kills than deaths, except for the Focke-Wulf 190A1 right now, which is 15-15, but that has to update. The G6, I am 2 kills and 7 deaths from 12 fly-ups. So yeah, I think that basically shows that that thing does not do well without modifications. But we get back to the historical stuff, and as I said before, it does kind of work with planes. I'll be fine with it with planes. But then we get to tanks. Okay? Tanks, it does not make sense. Because there are so many factors that you have to take into account when you talk about tanks. With planes, it's a lot of people talk about the ME-163 or the ME-262. Oh, they had engine failures. Oh, everything fell apart and the blade was horrible and the pilots blew up on takeoff 50% of the time and all this stuff. Well, yeah, to be honest, that doesn't make a massive difference when you compare it to tanks, okay? Tanks, you had the Tiger at Kursk. You had the first Panther at Kursk, 1942. The Panzer Kampfwagen 5 Aus D, that big fucker, BR of 5.0. Tiger, BR 4.7 in realistic. What do they face in game? Let's see what they face in game. The KV-85 wasn't at Kursk. IS-1 wasn't at Kursk. IS-2 wasn't at Kursk. T-34-85 wasn't at Kursk. Su-152, Su-85M not at Kursk. And the T-34-85 D5T not at Kursk. It actually came a year after Kursk. And the T-34-85 a year and a half after Kursk. Do you see the problems here? There is a reason why it's like this. Because the Tiger and the Panther were dominant at that time. If you actually had historical matchmaking, you would literally have the KV-1 L11 with the 76mm gun, a 1939 heavy tank, against stuff like Panzer IICs, and Panzer III's and Panzer 38T's, stuff which stormed France and the rest of Europe. But they would have just looked at the KV-1, turned around. They couldn't even penetrate it from any angle. Okay? And then you go further down the line, and for Germany you unlock your Tigers and your Panthers. Okay? And then you face T-34s, 1942s, and 1943s. That's what they should face. And the KV-1, maybe ZIS-5. The KV-1s, the Russians didn't really like them, so not many of them were used. Maybe the Su-122. Stuff which can't hurt the damn things. There is a reason why Russian tanks... There was a colossal difference between the amount of Russian tanks killed and the German tanks destroyed. And a lot of the German tanks which were destroyed, I mean, you take into account the Ferdinand. Well, at the time of the Battle of Kursk in 1942, it was called the Elephant. And the only real difference between the Ferdinand and the Elephant is that the Ferdinand had some machine guns on it, and a bit different, and basically everything else was the same. They modified a few little things to make it a bit more combat effective. But overall, it's the same tank. The Elephant in the Battle of Kursk was absolutely useless. Absolutely terrible. But it wasn't down to the fact that it wasn't a good tank destroyer. It was down to the fact because the chassis could not support the weight of the big turret it had. And it had no machine guns on it, so it could get taken out by infantry. So let's talk about those two things right there. Because it had no machine guns, it could get taken out by infantry. In War Thunder, we don't have infantry. We don't have people flanking the tanks. It would be great if we had battalions of infantry running in with our tanks, but we don't. It just does not exist. And the other thing, the chassis was not able to support the weight. It basically just fell apart the poor chassis fell apart under the stress of everything that was on top of it. And it just made it immobile and combat ineffective. That's never going to happen in War Thunder. If they model stuff like that, brilliant. You can have historical matchmaking. But shit like that is not going to get put into the game, because it would annoy more people than it would help people. Okay? So you cannot historically balance these tanks. At all. At fucking all. Because when you look at the Tiger, you look at the Panther, everybody would play them. It would be like the ME-262 to the Mustang. But the difference is, the Mustang actually has quite a decent chance of shooting down an ME-262. A 1942 T-34 with armor penetration at 500 meters of 74 millimeters cannot touch a Tiger or a Panther, which both, well, a Panther, actually, to be honest, it could penetrate it from the side. So if it flanked a Panther, it could do it. A Tiger, no chance. Absolutely no chance looking at its hull and turret armor. And everybody would just play Tigers and Panthers, because that's what the community would do. And the thing is, I'm talking theoretically here, just as everybody else is with historical matchmaking. But the thing is, what we can do to see if this works is we can play some events. We can play the Spanish Civil War right now, or the New Guinea campaign. We can look at the planes which each have. Okay? So, for the Spanish Civil War, basically got a load of biplanes against each other, but the Germans have the HE-112V5. Now, if I have a look, I believe that is the one with the cannon in the center. Let's see. No, it's not. It's the one with the two machine guns. Okay. So, if we look at both of these, what are people going to be flying? Well, everybody, for the Russians, is going to be flying the SB-2M, the bomber, because they don't want to be flying biplanes on a mission like Spain. And also, why would you want to fly biplanes against non-biplanes? Everybody for Germany is going to be flying the G50 Series 2 and the SM-79 1936. Okay? That's just how it works. If you give people a choice, if you actually put the Americans against the Japanese at the Battle of Midway, everybody would play Japanese. Except maybe if you gave the Americans 8 B-17s. But I digress. Let's go back to the BR system. Basically there I've talked about how it could work. Historical matchmaking could work for planes, as long as we get the modifications right, and talk about if they should change the BR or not. So, it could work for planes, it will definitely not work for tanks. Never will it work for tanks. But anyway, back to the planes. The current BR system we have, which is 1.3 either way, I believe should be reduced to 0.7, but let's talk about other factors that affect it. A big thing is how players use it. Basically, if a Mustang gets shot down a lot and doesn't get a lot of kills, it'll get lowered in BR. That's basically how it works, okay? In theory, this is great if you have equal numbers of people flying each nation. But right now, we have a massive skew towards the Americans, and basically, I believe it's just the Americans right now. Russians in a way in arcade as well. So we have a massive skew towards certain nations. And because new players see that, they go along with those nations. Because they think, oh, okay. If most people are playing this one, then it must be good. So that drags people who, let's say, need to learn the game first for playing those nations. There was a big thing a few patches back, and still is kind of a big thing, with the American Spitfire Mark 9. That attracts a lot of new pilots. And all you have to do is compare the Spitfire Mark 9, which is in the American tree, and compare it to a pilot who flies the Spitfire F Mark 9 for the British, and then see a difference. And anyway, that thing should be an LF Mark 9, not just a Mark 9. That's really weird. But anyway, I once again digress. For the Germans right now, in aviation, they have they have squadrons and people dedicated to the German tree. So you have a lot of people who are very much into their German planes. They know how they work, they know why they work, they know how to use them. So you get people flying the later Focke-Wulf 190s, the D12 and 13s. You get a lot of people flying the TA-152, the BF-109K4, the G10, the G6 BF-109s. And they are very, very good pilots. But the problem is, with this BR system, because they are good pilots, they are getting punished for being good pilots. The Gaijin are basically saying to them, well done for flying your planes. Well done for doing well. Now let's put you up against higher tier planes and see how well you do. Now technically, that works. But the massive problem that Gaijin has not seen, and I don't know how they haven't seen it, is that every player is not the same. If you had a community which was not growing, or was not adding new people, or bringing old people back, this system would be brilliant, because the thing is, you would have the same players fighting the same players over and over again. And that means that you could compare skills between people. But with an ever-changing community, with people buying new planes, and people using those new planes without modifications or with full modifications, it's going to be a different experience for them compared to what they were flying before. And that is why there was outcry last patch. Not just from me, but from a lot of people. A lot of YouTubers have actually given up War Thunder now, or at least going away from it. Because the F8F1 Bearcat was going to be reduced to 5.3. Because people, even though the Bearcat is seen by many good players to be the best fighter in the damn game, there's hardly anything that can touch that thing if it comes up against stuff with equal its BR. Like the BF-109 G10. Go out and look at the two stat cards and tell me that the Bearcat does not outrun it and out-destroy it in every single way. And that was going to get lowered, because a lot of the new players were playing the Bearcat because they'd heard the Bearcat was good, which it is. But the problem is, if you have a lot of new players playing it, it is not going to be that good, because a lot of new players, They're not going to know how to use it to its strengths. They're going to pick it up and go, it's great. And then they're going to get it into battle, and it's going to fall apart for them. And it's all going to fail. And that's what we're seeing with the Mustang, we're seeing with the B-17s, we're seeing with everything. Okay? And that's not just a theory that I've been talking about, that's a fact. You can see it how the P-47, a patch or two ago, it basically got its flight model corrected. Same with the P-38G. And they became the flavour of the month. And a lot of players flocked to them to make them, to use them because they'd heard they were really good. But the thing is, those new players hadn't really played it before, so they didn't really know how it was going to work. And with these new BRs that Gaijin was going to put in, it was going to be a BR of 3.3. 3.3 for a Thunderbolt, which can outperform anything already at 3.7 and even probably at 4.0, apart from the Americans at 4.0. So it's not down to the American planes, it's not down to the planes in-game, it's not down to anything like that, it's down to the players. You don't see a lot of new players playing anything apart from maybe America and Russia at the moment. You see very dedicated players playing Japan and Germany because everybody else has left. Because of what happened to the BRs. All you have to do, for a prime example of this, is look at the BF-109 K4, okay? BF-109 K4. It's 6.0 in arcade, 5.7 in realistic. Now if we're going to historical stuff, the K4 is a late 1944 BF-109. So it should really be facing Thunderbolts and King Cobras and stuff like that, but instead it has the same BR as a Bearcat, and regularly comes up against jets such as the P-80A. Now the P-80A is crap, to be honest, but it's still a jet. You know what I mean? It comes up against shooting stars. I remember a game where I played. I was in a B-17. I was playing with Isaac Clarke and another subscriber, SA_M77 on War Thunder. They were both in their jets. We had a shooting star, a P-80A, and then I was in a B-17. Their whole team was BF-109 K4s, which I killed 2 behind me when they dived on me, and Focke-Wulf D9s and D12s against basically a whole team of shooting stars, a P-80A and a B-17, because I wanted to prove a point. I wanted to show how broken the system is. And if they listened, fair enough. If they didn't, they didn't. And I didn't get shot down in that match, because the jets just destroyed everyone. I think we lost 2 guys, and they weren't shot down. They crashed. Simple as that. So maybe the planes do need historical matchmaking. Maybe just a trial of it to see how it goes. But whenever you talk about it, another point to be made about all of this is the forums. Now, the great thing about the forums is, even if some people are a bit toxic, it is a great place to see what the community thinks, or at least the dedicated community, which is the community you have to appeal to, especially when you're the War Thunder developer. If I have an opinion and I post on the forum and people comment, they say, I don't really agree with you, and they tell you why, it's great, it's wonderful. You'll get the odd person who is just really annoying, but that's just how it is on any forum. But then, when the forum by the developers is labelled basically useless and toxic, you wonder why players get annoyed. The only games that I use the forum on, I'm very passionate about. I used to go on the Company of Heroes forums. I used to talk on the Company of Heroes 2 one. I even dabbled into it when the new expansion came out for the second game, because I'm interested to see what's on it. I mean, it may want me to play the game again. I go on War Thunder's forums because I love the game. and I really like, to see what other people think about certain things. That's a community in itself. But when you go to the forum and you see a lot of threads about, hey, what about this BR change? Hey, what about that? Hey, what about this? What about even the smallest of changes? Even stuff like, I have sent 5 bugs now in-game, mainly down to physical, not flight models, but the physical model of the plane. Like the Mosquito, there are 3 massive problems on it. The ME410, there is 1, and I've also found one on the Wellington Mark 10. Just down to historical accuracy stuff. Like, they're not big changes, but I told them these problems a year ago, and they haven't touched them. And when you look at that, and then I go to the post that I made to the devs, and I look, and they go, thank you, we'll get it changed by next patch. And then you think, well, that was a year ago. And you wonder why the community is annoyed. And there's a lot more stuff like this. Like, the devs obviously don't listen or don't read the forums, because they've labelled them as bad. There have been a few community helpers, I think they're called, who have basically even said to us on the forums that the devs don't really care about the forums, because they are basically a toxic waste. Like Scarpa, a community manager, a guy who is loved by many, tries to bridge the gap between the developers and the community, and it just doesn't work. Now we have this idea of emissaries. And if Gaijin isn't going to listen to the community, why would they listen to these emissaries? I thought they had these before. They had testers. They had alpha testers and beta testers. They still have a few. And some of them they don't even listen to. And you think they're going to listen to these emissaries. Maybe there is a problem with language barrier or something like that. But it's what I've been told by some of my friends and people that I've interacted with. It's the same on the Russian forums. Okay, so it's not just the British stuff. So there's no bias here. It's just instead of just listening to one, they're just not listening to anybody. That's basically as simple as it is. So it would be nice if they were to listen to us. There was a big thing a few days ago, I believe, or maybe a week ago. Basically, they brought out this new model for the Tiger tank. It was bright and shiny and lovely and blah blah blah. It was beautiful. It was an absolutely wonderful model. And it totally eclipses anything out there on the market. And they're going to implement it soon, so it should be nice. It's basically, they've made the Tiger look nicer. But, even since closed beta, when I was in the closed beta for tanks, the Tiger tank, I'll just have a look here. Nope, that's the Russians. The Tiger Ausf H1, or the Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger Ausf H1. It has headlights on the damn front of it. Now, yes, historically it did have these headlights, but you've got to realise that in pictures of Tigers when they go into battle, they don't have them on, because the crews used to take them off. Because as you see, there's the problem in game, where your turret gets stuck on the damn things. If that was the case in World War II, the tank's turret would just hit the headlight and smash it. It would be getting stuck. Now the Tiger tank, it had these lights, okay? But the crews, it's even documented in many writings that the crews on the field would take off these things, basically a field modification. They would take off these things before going into battle. But the problem is, that doesn't happen in game. You still have those damn headlights, and they stop your gun rotating, and your gun gets stuck on them. And that's not fair, to be honest. And that outraged the community, because the community was like, Okay, nice model. But what about the headlights we told you about, 6 to 8 months ago? And there was no response. And that thread actually had to get locked because there were so many people going, what the fuck? We sent you many bug reports. I believe it was Trauma Werfer who sent a 6-page or 6,000 word bug report that he showed to us in the closed beta forum. And, well, there was nothing done about it. Even though it was obviously wrong. And that just shows that when you have a developer who doesn't and is not willing to listen, especially in a World War II game where a lot of people know a lot about it, you're setting yourselves up to die. Now you could label people as toxic. Wherever you go, even on YouTube, you're going to have people who are toxic. People who are out there to cause a fight. Trolls. People who are out there just to annoy you. Okay? That's just what you have in any community. And good community developers turn around and label them and get rid of them. Blacklist them. So you don't have to listen to them. Not the whole goddamn community. It's as simple as that, really. There's no rhyme or reason behind that. But maybe this emissary thing would work. Do I have my doubts? Of course I do. I want to know somebody who doesn't. Another thing to look at as well in this game, I'm sorry this is going to be a long video, because there is a lot to talk about, and I tell you what, I will still forget stuff, and I will make another probably hour-long video to talk about that stuff as well. Yep, that's just how it is. So, stuff that we have to look into. I've been researching this Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger Aus H1 for a long time now. It's 61,000 research points. The last battle I had, it was a ×2 victory, and I got 1,874 research points. And I was playing in the... what was I playing in? The Jagdpanzer 38T. Okay, so 4.0, researching 5.0. 1800's not terrible, I suppose, but it's not great. That was 6 kills, by the way. So, yeah. If that wasn't the ×2, you're talking about 900 research for 6 kills. But that's not what I'm going to talk about. It has obviously been shown that the tank research is really, really slow. And also, talking about that, after talking to a lot of my squadron members and a lot of other people as well, when you get to tier 4 or tier 5 for tanks, it's basically impossible to make a profit. It is basically designed to mean that you spend money on the game because you lose more lions than you gain. It's kind of as simple as that. But anyway, when we compare the Tiger Aus H1, BR of 5.0 in arcade, research 61,000, and compare it to the Russian equivalents at 5.0. Okay, so you have the IS-1. Let's take the T-3485D52, why not? And the D-3485. What else do you have? That's about it, really. And so we look at the IS-1. Okay? It's a heavy tank. BR of 5.0. Same BR. Only 50,000 to research. Why is it 11,000 cheaper? The IS-1 in all regards is probably better than that tank. In basically every way. I mean, beggars belief. Why is this tank cheaper? The T-3485, fair enough, is the same RP required. I don't know why, but it is. The T-3485D5T 4.7 is once again 50,000. KV-85 4.7, 36,000. 4.7 for the Su-85M, 61,000. Fair enough. So surely everything should be around 61,000. Because the two vehicles that you have at 5.0 for the Germans is 61,000. The Panzerkampfwagen 5 Aus D and the Tiger. But for some odd stupid reason, the Russians aren't. And you wonder why people claim bias in just little things like this. Because it's stuff that most people wouldn't look at, They wouldn't be like, oh, that's not a big difference, but if you compare 50,000 to 61,000, and you see that game, where I got 6 kills, got me, let's say, $2,000 for times 2. So literally every game, if I get 6 kills, I get 1,000 RP. I have to grind for 11 more games to get the Tiger than I do for the IS-1. Which, in all relative purpose, is probably better than the damn Tiger. Because of its hitboxes. And stuff like that. Same with the T-3485D5T. A tank which was designed to kill a Tiger, which came a year after the Tiger was introduced. Not many were made, but I could grind that, and I could wreck Tigers' faces all day. And it's even a lower BR than a Tiger. Fair is fair. Of course it is. God's sake. And then you look at stuff like repair costs. And this is all the stuff that I hope in the game gets fixed. I have offered solutions. If anybody else has other solutions, praise be Lord, tell me. And then we'll talk about them. There has been a lot of talk about the Griffin Spitz with their repair costs. It's kind of as simple as that, really. Basically, what Gaijin did was that when they introduced the Griffin Spitz, they were overperforming a bit. And by overperforming, I mean they weren't even performing up to the standard that they should do in real life, but a lot of people were like, meh, they're beating my American stuff, meh. So what Gaijin did is basically change the engine characteristics on them, made the flight model more realistic to the shape of it instead of a Tempest, and then increased the repair cost like tenfold. So if we compare the max repair cost on no modifications of an F8F1 Bearcat, BR 5.7 in realistic, that is 12,420. Okay? It's not bad. You can easily make that back. Same with like the Mustang as well. Spitfire F Mark 22. No modifications, same BR. 41,000 lions. Spitfire F Mark 24. BR 5.7. 45,000 lions. So what's that? 4 times the amount. 4 times. And you wonder why you don't see many people flying the Mark 22 and 24. You see, this is why we get pissed off. Stuff like this makes no sense. No sense at all. A Lancaster bomber, 12,000 lions, has a higher repair cost than the Bearcat, and it's a higher BR. And everything just seems tiered towards one purpose, which is killing this game. Like, every day you see less and less players. On the weekends it's different, obviously. And I'm sure when the new update comes out, people will come back to see what's in the new update. They always do. That's what people do. Remember when Tanks came out and hit 100,000 people for about a week, and then everyone went, well, shit, we can't research anything because it takes too many points, and then they all left again? That's what keeps happening to this game. Now, the population is slowly increasing due to accounts, but you've got to take into account the people who are online. There is a lot of good things with War Thunder right now. PlayStation integration went pretty well, I believe. We've got the Max stuff going. We're always introducing new planes, which is always nice. And certain things such as graphics and flight models, stuff is getting changed. So there are a lot of things going on the up, which is why I keep with this game. When I was younger, and what I've kind of lived by a lot of my life is, if something is broke, you goddamn fix it. You don't leave it. If you see a screw on a clock which is not screwed in, you screw the damn thing in. You don't leave it. Now that's an analogy. You compare it to this game. If you compare it to this game is basically, it has so much potential, and it has done for such a long time, and it's actually living a lot of that potential. When you look at tanks and you look at jets, stuff works pretty well compared to anything else out there of this size, okay? And the thing is, there are problems with it, mainly quite large ones, but stuff which can still be fixed. And a lot of players are leaving this game because they're not getting fixed. I would say show a bit of loyalty and try and help them fix it. Not sit back and... Because I bet you with those players, what they'll do is they'll leave the game, and once it's fixed, they'll come back. And then they'll go, great, it's fixed. And they think that's helping the game. They think them leaving and then coming back to support it helps the game. So who gets them through this tough time? Who helps Gaijin go, this is what needs to be done? Because those people will never get any credit. They never will. And I'm trying to help as much as I can, trying to keep people in this game. Because the thing is, if you keep people into this game, then that gives Gaijin basically more revenue, more time to try and save this game before, and if basically everybody leaves, Gaijin just gets rid of the game. A lot of people think that if a lot of people leave, Gaijin will change a lot of stuff. There's no guarantee of that. They'll just shut down the game because they're losing money on it. Not many developers, after seeing their game flop, repair the game. Like Towns, great example. A lot of people bought this early access game called Towns. Then it got a new guy who started working on it. Then he couldn't work on it anymore. So they shut down the game. People were in outcry. But because the game was so broken, he couldn't invest enough time into it. He talked about creating Towns 2, because he would be able to build it up from the ground up. But people decimated him for it. And in a way, rightly so. Maybe he could have said something like, okay, if you own the original Towns, you can get Towns 2 for free. Then people would be like, great, that's fine. But the thing is, that would be exactly what Gaijin would do with War Thunder. If everybody stopped playing the game and keeps just complaining about random shit and nobody plays, they'll just stop the damn game. Because they've already made their money. So they'll just put a stopper in the plug hole and stop spending it on it. It's as simple as that. At the end of the day, this is a money stream for some people, like developers and such. They rely on this game to keep them afloat. And I don't want to be the jackass who makes people leave the game and watch them suffer. I know that's a bit extreme, but that's basically what it's like. I want to help fix this game. I don't want to walk away and see it get destroyed, because I enjoy it. I do get kind of sick of, the developers and some of the decisions they make. But you have to advise them in a manner and just basically show them how, well, could you give me a reason why you didn't do that? You don't scream and shout at them and look like a little kid. You look at them and go, right, okay, so you've changed that, okay. If that's what you want to do, cool. But have you thought about this? Or you go, well, according to this record, what about this? I mean, I know they're very sketchy with their sources and stuff, but maybe they'll open that up. We already have the dev blog, we have the update monitor, they are posting more stuff. You have to give them time, and that's what I'm giving them right now. That is why I'm not leaving the game. I'm going to keep supporting this. Or at least I'm going to try to, for as long as I can. I'm going to keep doing stuff that I love. And I love making videos on this game. I love making videos on planes and tanks for you guys to see. I've ordered parts for my new computer that I'm going to be building, so I can bring an experience for you guys to be better. And also, so I can enjoy it more. And basically, I've even created a whole, in a way, episodic thing around this game. And to see it die would be very sad. I would find another way of doing it, but still, it would be sad. But anyway, thank you for watching, and have a great day.